Hello and welcome to the book talk for Nicky and the Rainy Day by Valerie Gorbachev. I have created a brochure for this book rather than a PowerPoint presentation. So down in the screen, you can see the video of me, the brochure, what it looks like when it's all printed off and folded. And then on the screen, you just see the brochure as it looks like in Publisher. So, Nicky and the Rainy Day is a book for kindergarten, first grade, and it is a fantasy story. I also pair this book, Nicky and the Rainy Day, with Sheep Take a Hike. When I am reading it to my class, they both kind of deal with going on adventures and discovering new things, and so those books really go well together. Opening up one flap, you will see in the middle the summary of the story. You can kind of see a strategy and a summary, but just the summary is there on the first flap when you open it. And the summary of Nicky and the Rainy Day is it is about a family of rabbits, and they can't go outside because it is rainy, and so they're trying to come up with things to do because they are bored. So Nicky suggests a bunch of different places to go to since it's rainy outside. He suggests going to the desert, going into space, going on a snowy mountain, hiking up a snowy mountain, and each place that he suggests, he also gives a little tidbit of information about that place. So students are also learning a little bit about different places around the world. Well, after going to all these places in his imagination, Nicky sees that the sky is clear and it's not rainy outside anymore, and so they decide to go on a real adventure outside and try to find where the rainbow is coming from that has appeared in the sky. As you're reading this to the students, just a little side note is it doesn't really say that Nicky and his brothers and sisters aren't going to these places. Students kind of have to infer that Nicky is not really going to these places. He's using his imagination to go to these different places. If you open up the brochure, and I just switched it to the inside, there are 3 strategies that you can use for this book, Nicky and the Rainy Day. The first strategy is cause and effect. It's over here. And I have a little image there to go with it you could use as an anchor chart if you wanted to create a cause and effect anchor chart prior to introducing this to your students. So I chose the strategy author says, I say, to use for Nicky and the Rainy Day. So you're going to want to create, just like it suggests in our text on page 64, an author says, I say anchor chart with an I wonder column, the author says column, I say column, and so column. Being as this is the kindergarten level, I would already have created some I wonder statements for students to then discover in the book. You could have students create some I wonder statements if they're a little bit older, it's farther in the kindergarten year, but I will already have those created. So then as you're reading, you're stopping at those I wonder statements and with the class as a whole group, filling out the rest of the chart to kind of go through that cause and effect and relating to what the author says and then relating to what you think about it on a personal level, or the students think about it on a personal level. So at the bottom, I have given an example of one place that you could use an I wonder statement in this story. So my example is, I wonder how Nicky will go to the desert. The author says in the text that they will go. I say that they can't go because it's too far away. And so they pretend they are going to the desert. So that's just a little example of one I wonder that you could use in Nicky and the Rainy Day. Going to the middle column, another strategy that you could use is guided imagery, which comes from our text on page 110. I wouldn't use author says, I says together. With guided imagery, I would use them as 2 separate ones. So if you choose to do guided imagery, there's a couple different activities you could do with guided imagery. The first one is before reading, give each student a piece of paper and explain to them that we're going to be reading a book about a rainy day. And then describe what a rainy day looks like. And as you're describing that, have the students write what they see in their heads. So I might say something like, it is dark and gloomy outside. Clouds everywhere. You look up in the sky and see water falling down. It hits your face, your arms, hand getting you wet, and then so on and so forth. And so then they're drawing that in on their piece of paper, what they are seeing in their head. Another activity you could do for guided imagery is give them a piece of paper that has different boxes for the different pages that they're going to be drawing for in this story. And so then as you read, rather than showing them the picture for each book, each page that you read, you're just reading the text. And so then they're drawing a picture that goes with what they are hearing and seeing in their head on that piece of paper. And then I would either show them the picture after reading that page, or at the end of the story just take a picture walk through so that they kind of see what the pictures really look like in the story. I would emphasize with my kindergartners that the pictures, your picture doesn't have to look like your partner's picture. It can look different just because they would look at someone else's and say, hey, mine doesn't look like that, and they get frustrated. So that's an important piece to emphasize to them, that is not everyone sees the same thing or interprets the text the same way when they hear it. The third strategy that I have is over here, and that is brainstorming prior knowledge using a knowledge map. And you could do this at the beginning of using the author says I say strategy or the guided imagery strategy. This is a good one just to kind of open up the topic. And so using the strategy, you would want to write the words rainy day on the board, and then have students generate words or phrases that they think of when they think of a rainy day. So some examples that they might use, I have at the bottom there: umbrella, water, wet. My kindergartners might even think indoor recess, because we do that when it's raining at school. So just having them generate as a class and write different words that they hear. I tweaked this a little bit from what was in our text on page 71 because they wanted them to do it in partners and then come together as a class after they generated things in partners. For kindergarten level, I felt that was just a little bit difficult, especially doing it at the beginning of the year. So rather than doing it in partners, I'm just going to have it done whole class. So if I switch back to the front, there's one more section of my book talk other than the 3 strategies that I wanted to share with you, and that's on the back, and it's why I choose this book. So just a little hook, if you were to use this brochure in a book talk, a face-to-face book talk, to give to someone, is you can read this book on a rainy day to inspire activities or simply to build comprehension strategies, but this book is filled with imagination and creativity for the primary student. So I will post my screencast-o-matic as well as the document if I can, and so that you have access to both of those to use in future book talks if you so choose. Thank you for listening.